and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books, and Daphne currently considering drinking my cup of tea. Debbie! Tea's just not for cats. It's just not for cats. Welcome to my October reading wrap up, coming to you live. Finish work, get home, film the video, upload, edit the video, upload the video. This is what my Wednesday night. So when you're watching this, if you're watching this Wednesday night, this has literally happened in the last couple of hours. I'm going to be talking today about the books that I've read in the month of October. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 books in October. That's pretty good going. Let's cast our minds all the way back to the 1st of October when I finished the book Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. This is the second, sorry, in the, I'm trying to find another Robin Hobb book so that I can work out what series this is in. This is the second, here we go. This is the second book, the Royal Assassin, in the Farseer trilogy. So I read The Assassin's Apprentice, read that in August, listened to 28 hours of the Royal Assassin, and was so keen to continue and thinking, because I'm really keen to get to the Live Ship Traders trilogy. That's what I keep hearing where the good stuff is. But with a bit of time away, I mean, today's the 30th, isn't it? So it's a full month basically since I've read that. I've still got one more book in the Farseers trilogy. I don't know if it's for me, guys. And I feel like if I leave any longer, then I'm just going to be dragging it out even more. Robin Hobb fans, is it just worth me just skipping to, if I haven't really enjoyed this sort of stuff about Fitz and the Fool, is it worth me going to the Live Ship Traders trilogy, or am I not going to enjoy that either? Obviously I can't tell you much about the plot because it's the second in the series. What I can tell you is that I felt like, yeah, sure, I learned a little bit more about the characters, but did I learn 28 hours worth about characters? No, I don't think I did. It was very long, and yeah, I'm loath to go back to it. At the time when I finished it, I was like, shall I go straight on to the next one? And I was like, no, I'll give myself a little bit of time. And the longer that time's gone, the more I thought, no, I'm not into it. So can I swerve the last book in that Farseer trilogy, and can I move straight onto the Live Ship Traders? I've got the second Live Ship Traders book, but I was going to listen to the first audio book from the Live Ship Traders. If you're not into the Robin Hobb books, or have never read them before, this is all futile, so we'll stop talking about that. Next up was Autumn Chills by Agatha Christie, a short story collection of Agatha Christie short stories pulled together because they have a few seasons, well, they've got all of the seasons. They've got good names, so let me just tell you. They're called, like, here we go, Midsummer Mysteries, Sinister Spring, and Midwinter Murder. I mean, Midwinter, Midsummer. They've used both of that. So yeah, and then they've sort of collated stories in here that have sort of links to that season. I'll be honest, I was sort of hoping for a little bit more Halloween and things in here. However, this did end on Witness for the Prosecution, which is a great story. I've been to see the play of that, but hadn't actually seen the, hadn't read the story of it, and I did enjoy that. But yeah, it could have been a little bit more autumnal, but I mean, look at this lovely front cover. Gorgeous. I think I will, oh, my phone's going. I think I will go to the other ones because I do love reading seasonally, but I just hope that maybe the others are a bit more of a nod to the season. I don't know, maybe, yeah, I do hope that. I do hope that. So there we go. Next up was, it's not looking good so far. All of them have been 2 stars. Next up was The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. This was a book that David's mum bought me for Christmas. If it wasn't last year, it might have been the year before. This was sort of, I could see where it was going. It was a sort of cosy, comforting book about this mystery bookshop that sort of disappears, and we're hearing from 3 different perspectives, one of which is in the past, which I do like that when that happens, when we're hearing about something in the past and then 2 people in the present. The annoyance here for me was that there was 2 people who were literally like flying off the handle, annoyed with each other and getting insults with each other, seemingly over, I couldn't really work out what, and then next thing sort of declaring their love for one another despite one of them being engaged and that all seemingly being okay. Yeah, it was a bit too charming for me and a bit too daft. Whimsical, I think is the word I use in my Instagram review. And yeah, that sort of thing just doesn't really do much for me. But I can see what it was trying to do, and I can see that there'd be lots of people that would enjoy that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm going to put this in the community library at work and people are going to probably love it. So there we go. Next up, another 2-star. It's Lolly Willows by Sylvia Townsend Warner. I mean, look at that front cover. That, you are expecting autumn with that, aren't you? And it didn't have autumn. What I compared this to, I said this is the equivalent, the book equivalent of From Dusk Till Dawn. Does anyone remember that film? Who's in From Dusk Till Dawn, David?
George Clooney, Antonio Banderas,
yeah.
Salma Hayek.
And it's like a sort of Western film.
Tarantino.
It's a Western film, isn't it, David?
I've never seen it.
Oh, so it's a Western film, and then, I mean, spoilers if you haven't seen it and you want to see it, and then halfway through it becomes this like proper vampire film, and you're all like, what? There's no hint that it's going to be that, and then just halfway through they go to a bar and there's just loads of vampires there.
And Salma Hayek does a sexy dance.
There we go, Salma Hayek does a sexy dance. And that's what is sort of was weird for me here, because there was bits where we're hearing about Aunt Laura, Lolly, and hearing about her, and then her living with this family. Like, you hear about her very early life and how sort of like she never got married and all of this sort of stuff, and then she goes to live with this family, and that bit I sort of quite liked. And then she just sort of gets fed up with this family and decides to move to this place, and it's all sort of very satirical and all just is very daft and just completely unexpected. So yeah, it wasn't for me, but I'm glad I've read it, because it's been looking on my shelves and me thinking that looks like the best thing ever. The only thing is about these gorgeous Penguin classics, cloth-bound classics, like once you've read one, like I'm never going to reread this. I'm never going to reread this. But do I keep it alongside all my other little lovely Penguin cloth-bound classics because they look so beautiful? And I think I will do that, which is weird, but they're sort of ornaments to me. So yeah, she'll hang on to it, but I didn't get much joy out of it. Next up, Glorious Exploits by Fergia Lennon. Listen to the audiobook of this. Got this book out from the library a couple of months ago. It was Waterstone's debut author award winner. It won. And I got it out and didn't get around to reading it, and then saw that it was out on audio on BorrowBox and got hold of it. And I'm so glad I did it on audio, because it was fantastic on audio, and I'm sure the bits that I loved about it, I loved more because of it being on audio. So a mythical retelling, a classical and mythical retelling about set in Syracuse, and it's about two particular chaps who were putting on a play using Athenian prisoners, and the Athenian prisoners are treated disgustingly, and they don't really want to be in the play, but they know that this is their sort of like lifeline. This is the only thing that's keeping them alive. And the two main characters, I've heard a lot of people who have reviewed this say that they love the two main characters and they thought they were really funny and charming. I thought they were dicks. But what I really did like about this is that it's written by an Irish author, and it was narrated by that Irish author. And within the book, and I'm not sure how it translates on the page, but when you're hearing these sort of like classical like Greek retellings from an Irish accent using Irish turns of phrase, that felt really special and really new and sort of invigorated. I'm not one for a sort of Greek myth retelling. Like it's not, I've tried many over the years and not really got on with anyone, but this one I was interested in, and I had great sort of like nice times listening to it whilst I was making dinner and stuff like that. But I think that was a lot to do with the style in which it was written and the language and stuff that was used. It just felt a bit fresher to me than the other stuff. But yeah, it's still not for me, sadly, all of that sort of thing. So there we go. Right. However, the next book, things do get better, which is great news. It's a bit of a shocker, but I really, 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 really enjoyed, 3.5 enjoyed, The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. Laurie Gilmore absolutely has to be a pen name. I'm certain of it. I mean, we're given... Oh, don't want to lose that. That's a bookmark. We're given sort of like background into Laurie Gilmore, but Laurie Gilmore, that is like a name from the Gilmore Girls, isn't it? But yeah, this is the first in what I imagine is going to be a series. There's 3 out at the moment, and then there's another one planned for spring. Sort of like cozy village life, a lot like Gilmore Girls, where we're sort of focusing on certain people. So like in this book, we're focusing on Jeannie, who has been left, who has been given the Pumpkin Spice Cafe by her aunt, and we're focusing on her and her, she's moved, like big city girl, moved to a small town, interested in a chap that already lives there, making friends, getting to know the bookshop owner and the pub owner and all of that sort of stuff. And then it looks like from the other books is that we're going to find out more about those people and their businesses and their lives and stuff like that. It was cheesy and it was insta-love and it was daft, but I just fully indulged myself in this. I had a lovely time reading it. I picked it up and put it back down and just slipped in and out of it. This is so unheard of. These are not my type of books, but I just had a really, really fun time reading it. And I sort of told myself, because there's a Christmas one of these called The Christmas Tree Farm, and I will be reading that in December, but I told myself, oh, then in which case read the next one, which is called The Cinnamon Bun Bookshop, I think it's called. Yeah, I haven't got them in here because this is the first one, but I'm sure it's called The Cinnamon Bun Bookshop. And I was like, I will read that in November. So I've been waiting for November to come around, and I've been really looking forward to reading this. Something else that's also just another little, a little special thing is that they include playlists at the top of these books as well. So I've had a lovely autumnal time listening to these autumn playlists, which include a lot of Taylor Swift, as you can imagine, but sort of like some songs that I had loved but haven't heard in a long time, like Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer and Dreams by the Cranberries, but also like I discovered some new artists like Girl in Red, their song We Fell in Love in October, loved that. Clyro by Amoeba, really, really like that one too. Ceilings by Lizzie McCall Payne, lovely time. So, and then there's playlists in the front of them. What I will say is that these are definitely for older readers. There's some spicy sex scenes, and I'm told that the second one, the sex scenes are even spicier than this, and these were pretty spicy. So yeah, really did have a great time with this. Like, yeah, an absolute shocker to me, but delighted it went so well. There we go. So it's all on the up from now. So next up, I've then read Clear by Caris Davis. This is a short novella, a short story about two chaps on an island. One who's lived there by himself his whole life, sort of tending to the island and looking after the small amount of wildlife on that island, and somebody who's been tasked to go to that island and inform the person that's living there that he needs to leave the island, and they're going to use that land just for sheep. These two do not speak the same language, and after an incident which happens when the chap who's coming to visit the island is involved in an accident, the sort of power dynamics of their potential relationship changes. We're also hearing from that chap's wife back home and her wanting to know what's going on there. Yeah, I really, really loved it. It was really, really interesting. I mean, I love stuff set on islands anyway, but like great sort of like friendship dynamic despite them not speaking the same language. And then when you're hearing about them learning one another's languages and certain words, and finding out what words are important to their life, the life that they're living, what words have come up within that. But yeah, really, really enjoyed this. I would have probably read it in one sitting. I read it for Cozy Reading Night, but yeah, really, really great. Must read more of Caris Davis's stuff. Never read it. So West is the first one, the very, very famous one that I've seen around, but there's also The Mission House. But yeah, I must get around to more of it because this was fabulous. Speaking of fabulous, I also read a poetry collection, started it on Cozy Reading Night as well. This is The Orange and Other Poems by Wendy Cope, and I picked this up when I went to the Margate bookshop. When I was there, they've got a lovely, I really like looking at that board. When I go in there, they've got a board in there which talks about the top 10 books that have been selling that week in the shop, and this book was on there. I don't normally gravitate towards poetry, but there was something about this bright, lovely cover and this sticker on this orange that says, "I love you, I'm glad I exist," that I thought, I'm going to go in for this. And this was a real journey. I really had a lovely time. So it sort of, the first one had me grabbed straight away, if you wouldn't mind. It's called Valentine, if you wouldn't mind me indulging you in it. "My heart has made its mind up, and I'm afraid it's you. Whatever you've got lined up, my heart has made its mind up. And if you can't be signed up this year, next year will do. My heart has made its mind up, and I'm afraid it's you." So I was in from that, but then there's just like this really funny poem about sitting on a banana and a packet of crisps in a car that really reminded me of my friend Emily. And we've been trying to get to the bottom of this because I feel like maybe she was dating someone or she was getting off with someone in her car and they kept sitting on something, but we haven't been able to get to the bottom of the story. But it like made me laugh and made me think of her, and I texted her the poem, and that was lovely. And then there's really sad ones in there. There's one in here that my sister had studied with her students about names, and it's about an old lady and how she was called different names throughout her life, but never her sort of like full first name, which might have been like Elizabeth or something like that. And then when she goes into a home or into hospital for the last 2 weeks of her life, everyone refers to her as Elizabeth, which is the name she's never been called, and just it's sort of so bemusing to her. And it's just really like, oh, after like laughing about this story about someone getting a banana up their bum by sitting on it by accident, to then be confronted with that. So really, really special. And like there was like 35 pages, not even 35, yeah, 35 pages, and loved it. We'll revisit this all the time. Really, really great. Must look at more by Wendy Cope, but very, very special thing. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Then I read Why We Sing by Julia Hollander. Ooh, not all bangers, because this one I gave 2 stars. This is a non-fiction book about choirs and singing and what singing can do. Maybe not about choirs, maybe about singing, I would say, and what singing can do for you in terms of health, well-being, mental and physical well-being, and sort of communities, and what it brings to like the young, the very young, the elderly, to people with disabilities. And I sort of went into this like, this is going to be great. We're reading this for choir book club. We're going to have so much to discuss in here. And unfortunately for me, it was just a bit too dry. And I feel like the chapters, it was very, very long. And I feel like if it had been half the length, I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. There's a lot of padding in there and stuff that I sort of knew as a singer, and I thought had been sort of told to me many, many times throughout it. So yeah, it wasn't quite the thing I wanted to be. I will say there was stuff in there where she'd shared stuff about her own life, and the experiences she's had with singing, and I found those bits interesting. But then we just go on sort of like 6 pages of like quotes from people who'd been doing studies and things like that, and I just wasn't that into it. And I know some people like non-fiction like that, so this is for some people. I'm interested to find out what the talk will be like when we talk about it at book club, because yeah, I'm interested to find if anyone found it as dry as I did. But there we go. Next up, I read We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. Listen to the audiobook of this. I wish I could tell you I loved this. I wish, because I love Richard Osman. I think he's Richard Osman's House of Games, brilliant. Richard Osman's podcast that he does with Marina Hyde, The Rest is Entertainment, fantastic. David and I love him, and he's just a really, really nice chap with some really interesting views and very well informed about stuff, and just everything about him, tick, 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 like really enthusiastic about independent bookshops and stuff, like the whole package. I love it, apart from his books. And I read The Thursday Murder Club, which is the first book in a very successful series of Richard's that he wrote a couple of years ago. I think they've got one more in the series to go. I read it and did get on with it, and like everyone loves it, and it's like hugely popular. And then I thought, maybe I missed a trick with that, and I'll listen to the audiobook of it. And I listened to the audiobook of it, and I felt the same. And I felt the same about We Solve Murders as I did about the Thursday Murder Club book. And that is that there's too many characters in these books, and particularly a lot of those characters are similar. So in the Thursday Murder Club book, you're following a group of people who are in an old people's home, a retirement home, and sort of like small village life and the people that are around that. Well, a lot of them are very similar. And then in this, you're following a woman who is in the security service, and sort of close relationship that she has with her father-in-law, and somebody she's protecting in the security service. And then there's somebody who's doing some murders, the murders that we are going to solve. And yeah, a lot of similar characters in there, and then very convoluted. And at the end, I was sort of like, God, do I even understand what's going on with this revelation? Like, the revelation sort of fell flat for me, and I wasn't even sure who the person that was being revealed was. Like, yeah, they're just not for me, which is fine, because he'll be fine without me, and I love everything else he does. So sorry, Richard, but yeah, I think we'll just call it a day now. I think we'll just call it a day. Then next up, I read Queen Bee by Juno Dawson, which is the prequel to the HMRC series that Juno's been writing, which I love, which is if I tell you a little bit about this. So there's been the HMRC, which is Her Majesty's Royal Coven, and then the Shadow Cabinet, which is the second book in the series, about a group of modern witches living in Hebden Bridge, and they've all got sort of different powers, and they're friends from school, and they've got history, and then there's sort of new history being created, and they've lived through a war, and then there might be something else going on. A lot of stuff in there about gender, which I really, really loved. And so they're great. They're really great. I've loved them, and they've been some of my favourite books over the past 2 years. And then this was a prequel set in the time of Anne Boleyn and her coven. And I was sort of like, that sounds delicious. I love the 6 Tudor Queen series, and I've been getting really into them because of 6 and stuff like that. And I've loved HMRC. Went into it thinking, yes, wanted to listen to the audiobook, because I've listened to the audiobooks of the other 2, narrated by Nicola Coughlan from Derry Girls and Bridgerton, amongst other things. Great. I listened to the first sort of couple of chapters of it, and I was like, I've no idea what's going on here. So I got it out from the library and had a much better time reading it. There's not all that much. Anne Boleyn in it, which is weird because it happened. So you're hearing from the perspective of somebody else in her coven, who on the day after she is on the day that she's beheaded, and then you get a few flashbacks which include Anne. But yeah, there just wasn't as much sort of Anne Boleyn in it as I thought there was going to be. I enjoyed it a lot. Do I feel like it added all that much to the series? Not at all. Like literally nothing. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just desperate for the third and final book in the series. But yeah, I had a great time to it and it was a great accompaniment. But I think if I was reading that for the first time, I wouldn't think, oh, I must read the rest of this series. Like, it didn't add all that much to it for me, which feels painful to admit. But I still had enjoyed it. Gave it 3.5 stars. I still enjoyed it. But yeah, it didn't add loads to it for me. Next up was The Silent House by Nell Patterson, the penultimate book of October. This was the book we read for Patreon Book Club. The theme this month was deaf representation, and this won the vote. And yeah, this is a crime thriller book about a deaf family who, trigger warnings here by the way for child murder, who are in their house one night and somebody breaks in and kills the youngest daughter in the family, who is 18 months old. And we're finding out about that case and the sort of things surrounding that from an interpreter's point of view, a British Sign Language interpreter's point of view. Now that interpreter, Paige, is very much involved in the family because she's part of the deaf community. She is a child of deaf adults, and she's been involved in the deaf community for a long time. And she mentions in here that you'd be hard pressed to find a local interpreter who wasn't involved with other people in the deaf community. So that was a hugely interesting perspective to read from, and to sort of look at the ways that nothing's a level playing field for deaf people trying to access services or just live their lives. And in this instance, they've got this sort of safe space they can go to called the Deaf Club. They go every Friday night and they can socialise with other deaf people and things like that. But that isn't the case. This is set in Scunthorpe in the UK. That isn't the case very much. And they talk about how funding's been cut and they're very fortunate to have this. But yeah, so the deaf side of things I was very, very interested in, and I feel like it really highlighted a lot. And we had a great discussion during book club where we were talking about things that we hadn't realised and stuff that this book had taught us. But the actual storyline in terms of like the interpreter herself, Paige, she was the most unprofessional person I have ever come across in a book. I think I would say she blew so hot and cold. One minute she wants to get involved in the case, next minute she can't be bothered. She's telling people about the case when she's been in police interviews. She's telling her sister about stuff. She's sort of falling for someone who's just turned up at the club and revealing a lot more to him than she should do. She's stalking people because she knows who's got someone's phone. It was insane, that side of things. But yeah, and I went to it thinking I'm going to give this two stars or 2.5 stars. And then once we'd had the chat about it, inevitably is sometimes the case when it's book club, that although I didn't enjoy the book when I was reading it, I've come away from it thinking, I've learnt some stuff from here. And there's a second book, there's 3 in the series, there's a second book called Silent Night, which is set in the winter, and I was thinking, maybe I will read that. So I've gone from thinking, oh God, thank God that's over, like I won't have to have anything to do with that now. Now I'm thinking, oh, maybe I will read that. I just hope her professionalism increases, because this was her, yeah, very bad interpreter in terms of like, she needs to read up on her GDPR, that's what I will say. So there we go, that was that. And then the last book, which I finished yesterday, was Redwall by Brian Jacks, which is this book about sort of anthropomorphized animals living in Redwall, which is an abbey. Mice in the main, but have lots of sort of like friends and things like that, rabbits and badgers and all sorts. And that abbey is under attack from an evil rat called Clooney, who works in conjunction with sort of other animals, and there's squirrels and there's sparrows and stuff like that, and they all speak in like different sort of regional accents and sometimes not so regional accents. And yeah, I sort of went to it thinking, that sounds cozy. And cozy it was not. I kept being lulled into, because they're animals, I think, and it felt a bit sort of Animals of Farthing Wood. I kept being lulled into a sense of like, this is a children's story. And I guess this is a children's story. It's sort of certainly marketed with other children's books on the front and back of these covers. Yeah, so I'd hear about some sort of delicious meal that they're having or stuff, and then I'd hear about like a rat getting his absolute head bashed in, or a sparrow getting his beak ripped off and stuff like that, and I'd think, oh oh, this isn't quite as cosy as I thought. It is one big war. So we're following Matthias, that's who this little chap is here, and his sort of interest in Martin the warrior, who is a warrior mouse from before times, and they've got this tapestry of him, and he's very invested in all that, and he's got this sword, and he wants to get his hands on this sword, and he knows this will help him in the battle and stuff like that. But this is one big battle, and it's a big book, guys. It's a big book. It's like over 500 pages. Yeah, 542 pages of a battle. And just when you think, oh, the battle might be lulling a bit, then they come up with something else to do. And I'm not much of a battle reader. That's sort of why I didn't love Lord of the Rings, because there's a lot of battle-y stuff in there. But yeah, I had an enjoyable time with it. And when I put this up on Instagram, so many people were like, these were my favourite books when I was younger. A lot of men, or a lot of people saying, oh, these were my husband's favourite books, or this is my son's favourite books. It's a whole series. I think I'm done with it. Like, I think I've read what I wanted to. But I'm glad I read it. What I will say, though, if anyone's read these, then do please explain. These are the Redwall books by Brian Jacks. This is the list of them. And they're a lot of them are out of print. This is a vintage copy that's been sort of reissued, republished. But Redwall appears here. And this is the first book in the series. So whether or not, like, Redwall happened first, and then Brian Jacks has written these books sort of around this. But yeah, I don't really know how it works. But yeah, I've read it now, and it is done. But yeah, it wasn't, don't know, it wasn't quite as cosy as I thought, but I still had a good time with it. 2.5, there we go. So there we go, those are the 13 books that I read in the month of October. Do please let me know what books you read in October. Have you read any of these books at any point in your life? Please do let me know, and I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye!